going on there, citizens of the Reject Nation? Welcome back to the 4th episode of A Diary of a Real Reject, where we talk movies, shows, and potential celebrities of who has helped shape our identities. I think this should be the intro moving forward to kind of explain what separates this. Anyway, we are here at the Preserve. I should probably introduce you first.
No, introduce the Preserve. It's beautiful here.
Nah.
These plants will outlive us all.
No one knows who you are.
No one knows me.
We're at the Preserve. It's home to 6,500 plants and trees, and it's beautiful out here. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's a joy at nighttime and in the day.
I know. It's actually pretty cool that we get to shoot here at night.
Yeah, it's like being in Jurassic Park.
And of course, we are partnered with Multi-House. We are in their actual office.
Multi-House.
Due to the time of day.
Absolutely.
They had to get repositioned. And of course, John is usually the one who is handling all the cameras and stuff. And while he did set everything up, we are being 100% assisted by a beautiful man named Ted right now.
Ted Angle.
Ted, just shout, Ted. They'll hear you.
Hey, everyone.
A little Spider-Man cameo over there. Hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I've also brought this bottle of Topo Chico just because if there's any one brand on planet Earth, I will shamelessly shill for it's them. So please sponsor this segment.
That's so good to hear. I love the way how you just fluidly rolled that in there. John. So I wanted to bring all the rejects on.
Cool.
And of course, it was like, well, the first one has to be John. If someone is going to come on this podcast, it's got to be you.
We got to practice on John.
We got to practice. You got to let all the kinks get out of the way. With that in mind, Praper, if you're editing this, John and I give you 100% permission because we're not going to have time to review this, to just put all the wrong inserts in.
Yes.
Let's just do the first podcast.
This should be the most meme
every time you think like
podcast.
where you think this is where an insert is supposed to go. Put the incorrect insert.
I want to ride the line between information and misinformation. So like throw an authentic visual aid in every like third or fourth one and then make everything else completely wrong.
You'll learn visual gags here. But no, this should be like the smoothest, most profound conversation and the easiest one to do, which has me nervous because this should be a slam dunk.
But watch us,
I want to do with this.
Watch us drive it into the ground.
Yeah, this should be so easily
watch
done.
Us dig a hole so deep we disappear out the other side.
Before we did that, I was like, well, what would be different about this than us just talking? I mean, obviously, people will get to know you better because I think, and I think anyone who knows you would probably attest to this, is you are kind of this mysterious figure who you feel like you really know John. That's the way people operate in life. They feel like they really know him.
Oh, goodness.
But then when you ask like actual facts about him outside of like, yeah, he likes Rob Zombie and guitar and like some like general stuff. But when you're like, what's his life like? Why is he the why of whys? Like all these questions, you find that most people don't actually know because you are such a great listener and you are so empathetic in your responses to people that you're often, they say like to be interesting, be interested. And you are often a very interested individual. And I think due to that, it's very easy to feel like I really know John. I really click with him. People can probably feel like your soul and your spirit and all that boring shit. Stuff that makes you human.
Yeah. All that sappy crap.
But I was like, I mean, if I can ask for you to just kind of open up today, I think that would be kind of, I know you don't like to give names if in case something comes up. And so I'm not going to like try to go like hardcore.
I'm bringing receipts.
John therapy here. But, if there's a way to get a little bit more of the personal side of John, I feel like that would actually be a unique way of getting to know you.
Okay.
And also, likewise with my brother, I realized for the past few years, we just talk profile to each other. And now
we're face to face. Yeah. Now it's like, don't look at the camera, look at each other.
Look at each other. Wow. Okay. This is weird. We don't even really look at each other when the camera's not rolling. This is really strange. So, of course, John, I have a hunch as to what this answer is, but I wonder if you're going to answer what I would answer for you.
You should answer every question, and then I'll give you the whether or not that was true. Let's play Wikipedia Fact or Fiction.
Yeah. It's going to be like a real Joe Rogan podcast where I have you on to
Jamie,
hear me
pull
talk.
that up, Ted. Ted, pull that up.
Yeah. You're just going to be here to hear me talk about you. Who was your celebrity crush growing up and why?
I've thought about this question because I know that you ask it. And on the Christian Harloff podcast, you were like, I should ask this first every time. So I feel like there's definitely an answer that we would both share for this.
We share?
Well, none that we share as in like it's our mutual crush, but that we would both think of because obviously I think the first... Like part of me feels like maybe there's got to be somebody before that. But yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is Misty from Pokemon. Yes. Absolutely. And that was back before it was acceptable and cool to have a crush on a cartoon character. You were a weirdo. But yeah, no, Misty. But if we're talking about like actual celebrity crushes, in thinking of this, and certainly, I don't know most of what we're going to talk about today, but I did at least consider this. And yeah, I think for me, in terms of an actual human breathing celebrity crush, it would have started with Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams.
Oh, fun.
And then it came back around with Christina Ricci as Katrina Von Tassel in Sleepy Hollow. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's like a 1-2 punch of just like, oh.
I think what people really want to hear about is Misty.
Misty, I mean, she was just a ride or die, and you could tell she was sensitive, she was tough, she was fluid like water. It's great. She's a gym leader. Like, what couldn't you love about that? She shares Ash's passion and my passion for being a Pokemon master, for catching them all, and, to defeating every gym trainer out there. What's not to love?
Stop deflecting with humor in
a
my
relationship. I
session.
like somebody who I can collaborate with, or, it doesn't have to be that, but like I've noticed that's especially joyous. And Misty, we could have had that.
Well, okay, so let's rewind here a little bit. John and I have known each other since I say we known each other since first. We didn't become best friends till third because not like we hated each other. We just didn't really talk to each other. And then we were forced to sit at when those weird classes where they have like 4 desks they push together into a square.
Two of you
so you're
face
like
each other.
You're literally facing someone. So 2 students have to like turn over their shoulder to watch the teacher. It's a really like unproductive way, or else I'm like looking across from me at the first.
Like every one of these has to be diagonal, so we're all looking kind of that way.
It's actually a terrible way. That's a whole other subject. Terrible way to teach.
We will reshape the school system today.
What if you're attracted to the person you're sitting across? Then you might just develop a legit staring problem.
Sure.
These are the problems of the youth.
I mean, that's exposure therapy,
Anyway, so John and I sat next to each other.
This is going to be the hardest podcast to follow.
We're going to start a hard time staying on track. And we were into fun. Everyone was into Pokemon. That was like the rave. Everyone was into Pokemon.
Yeah. It swept the nation.
And the movie hadn't yet come out. I think that's when it started to kind of die down.
The first movie.
Not Pokemon 2000. And when the first, so we had the Pokemon soundtrack that came out, and there was the Misty song.
I love you.
Yeah, where it was revealed that Misty officially
out here in the quiet of the night beneath the stars. Yeah, man.
Was that
confirmed on the soundtrack? Canonical.
Was that the thing that got you into? Did you have a crush prior, or was it that song?
I think that just added to the loveliness of like for a second there until I think she names Ash in the song, so you can only insert yourself so much into the cipher experience of that. But no, that just added icing to the cake.
Interesting.
I don't know. Yeah, just for some reason, just the Misty vibes on the show, and spending so many mornings and afternoons, with Pokemon, and being so into that anyway. Just, I don't know. Yeah, for whatever reason, she grabbed me.
Well, how would you define her personality?
Now, see, it's been so long since I've watched a Pokemon. I mean, she's not the most like, I feel like Ash and Brock are both very sort of forward characters, whereas Misty is like certainly one who will like rise to a challenge and overcome, but, is like a little bit more timid at the outset, but also, she's kind of big sister as well. She's sort of keeping Ash and Brock in line, and I don't know, water just in general as an aesthetic, and those kind of Pokemon like Squirtle, Blastoise was my guy, Blastoise was my guy. So like, I feel like those are Misty adjacent things anyway.
I'm gonna see if I could draw a correlation here. I'm already picking up on some stuff. Now, okay, Christina Ricci.
Yeah.
What was it about Christina Ricci that you were drawn to?
I don't know, because like with Wednesday Addams, there's just something about her that she was just, she's beautiful, so like that helps, but like, and she's got that kind of Not that even I'm always attracted to that alien, Tim Burton look, but, her version of that is super lovely. And yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason, Wednesday just kind of captivated me. I don't even know how to quite describe it because I was young enough that, you're just sort of like in awe of and enamored with, and you're not even quite sure. Like Katrina Van Tassel is easier to sort of be like, oh yeah, like this is, it can have a greater sense for like what you would be interested in as like a more mature person. I don't know. Like a childhood crush is interesting to me because I'm like, yeah, what is it? Like, do you want to be this person's friend? You feel that sort of pang of like, this is more than just friendly, like a crush is like an affectionate thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm curious. I like the Wednesday is the one that I guess would need unpacked at this therapy session.
Absolutely. I think that is the one to unpack. So with her,
Yeah.
would you say, obviously you don't have to name any names because you're John.
Yes.
Is there, from the women you've dated or been with or find yourself attracted to, are there ways you could connect dots between Wednesday Addams at all with them in terms of personality traits compared to some women that you've perhaps been very fond of or find yourself very attracted to?
Perhaps. There's the goth aesthetic is certainly one I enjoy.
I would say that. I mean, that's an obvious one.
Yeah. Like the aesthetics are easy to track. And I think too, just, I don't know, the mischief and the sort of like Wednesday is always in control, and Wednesday is always like cool and calm. Well, not that that's always the flavor, but sometimes it is the flavor.
Thinking of 3 specific women that I know of in your life. I'm like, totally Wednesday Adam vibes.
Sure.
I actually very much see it now.
Wednesday is
That
cool,
makes
calm, and
sense.
mischievous. And I think cool, calm, and mischievous is a really fun vibe. And yeah, that like is a bit of a siren call to me, I guess, is sort of like, you look interesting and sort of offbeat, but also like adventure would await with you.
I feel like between your first real girlfriend to your not last girlfriend, but one before last, I was like, oh yeah, that's very much there. But even the one in the middle,
there's some Wednesdays. No, sure. They all have Wednesday vibes, certainly, or at least a lot of them have had Wednesday vibes.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. I actually never knew that about you.
Yeah, it was something that I kind of discovered about me in prep. This is the one little piece of prep I kind of did because I was here for the other podcasts.
Yeah.
Spoilers to break the movie magic, but
well, I got a little weird question about that then, because growing up with you, I know that you were kind of known to be the one who was the most censored out of all of us. Like you couldn't even watch like The Simpsons and stuff, and
for a while.
It's kind of funny, like listening to, you don't want to make your parents look bad. For a while, yeah.
Well, eventually we got there, and then it was sort of like we started showing them episodes to be like, see, like this is actually pretty great.
It's our sense of humor.
Yeah.
It's very much a Humphrey household sense of humor.
Sure.
Well, with what were we talking about?
We were segueing out of Wednesday Addams into a sub Wednesday question.
Yes. Okay. So with the Sleepy Hollow side of the story,
sure.
How old were you when you saw Sleepy Hollow then, roughly? Because to me, I'm like, that doesn't sound like the kind of movie your family would have let you watch growing up.
Yeah, when did that come out? I'm trying to think. Was that 99 or 2000? I feel like I actually did see that like as a teenager, like close. I don't think I saw it in the theater. I think it was probably brought home from Blockbuster Video as a rental, and it always left an impression on me. And yeah, because that movie doesn't have anything that's overtly, I think it's rated R, right? Like there's gore.
It's definitely rated R.
Yeah, the bloody head treat, of course. Now that I say that,
gory.
of course.
It's very gory,
But yeah, that one, I think by that time there was a little less fuss about like. Yeah, I was probably had more latitude to watch, more adult fare by that point in time. I want to say not too long after the movie would have come out, because that was also the time where like when something was in theaters, you had to wait like forever for it to come out.
Yeah,
so it was probably a couple years later.
Good old days.
Yeah, I was probably like in my tweens or teens.
I mean, the Humphrey household is a very interesting one to me because you guys are so tight knit, and so much of, if you guys watch the reaction videos, is very much like how John and a Humphrey household. You guys are very much a participating group.
Sure. Yeah. We are a very Mystery Science Theater kind of vibe.
1,000%. You guys also really get along very well. It's like you're one of those families that actually seems like you're friends and you actually hang out with each other.
Yes. We all live in the same apartment.
But Yeah, right across the hall.
There's a naked guy across the street. Yeah.
But when you were growing up, though, with this, I was wondering, what was the most uncomfortable movie theater experience with them?
Oh boy.
I feel like a lot of us have this with our parents, and we don't really talk about it.
I mean, a legendary one for me was back in the day. I remember getting so hyped about Blade when it was first coming out, and I would do this for other stuff. I'm sure the Fight Club notebook story will come up at some point here, where I would just clip things out of the paper and like get fixated on just the poster alone. So I like begged to go see Blade, and then we went. And like within the first couple minutes, it became clear to me as like someone vaguely even aware of what I was seeing there. I was like, oh, that's a lot of blood. This is kind of weird to be in right between the folks for. And then pretty soon there was a hand over my face and we were back in the car. Like we didn't make it past the blood rave at the beginning. And it was like, yeah, already. I remember she grabbed that guy's crotch. And then I think my mom was starting to be like, oh, I don't know what we just walked into. And then the blood started to rain from the ceiling. And then it was like, now we're gone. Ooh. So like that was a bummer and uncomfortable.
What was the one that you sat through though? Like from beginning to end? That's a fun one though.
There might be one earlier than this. I mean... The John meme movie, the first ever movie I learned to dislike. I think watching Monkey Bone in the theater, I think I saw that in the theater with at least my dad. And that was, I was like, oh, I didn't like that experience. But the one that
because of the movie or uncomfortable. The content in the movie is what made you uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, like the whole cartoon bit at the beginning where he's like doing the
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's like a cartoon at the beginning, which in hindsight is like innocent enough, but like at the time too, it deals like it's a cartoon about a kid in class and he like gets an erection or something like that, and he's like putting books on it and the teacher, and it's like a weirdly sexual little skit because that's the kind of movie it is.
Is that what bone means?
Sort of. The monkey bone is like the personified, like lusty mischief, monkey on your back. As I am understanding
Barely remember it.
I have only seen it that one time, so part of me is like, I should rewatch this and see.
I kind of remember is that Brendan Fraser?
Brendan Fraser, yeah, and Dave Foley is in it, and a few other people.
Chris Kattan?
Yes, he's like the dead guy who I think they for Monkey Bones soul. I can't remember fully.
I have a vague memory of the trailer.
Yeah. And it's like a Henry Selick movie. It was like the blend of I think so. Check me on that, Ted. But I think it was a blend of stop motion and live action. But that was uncomfortable. The one that really comes to mind is we went to the movies, my dad and I, and he's very much sort of like he just likes to go and share that experience. So he'll definitely be sort of like, oh yeah, whatever you want to see, let's go. So at the time I wanted to see Saw 2 because I'd heard Saw was cool, and I was just like, I'll check out this Saw movie, let's go, how bad could it be? And bless my dad because he sat through it, but I could tell he did not like that movie at all. And I was really enjoying it, but I was also like, I don't want to really like indulge in enjoying this because like I also just feel strange that this is like so violent. And all the characters are so harsh. And and in the car, it was funny because in the car afterwards, he was charitable about it. He was like, well, I didn't guess the ending. Like they did keep me guessing. I'll give them that.
You're such your dad.
But he was not. He was like, I'll be happy to never watch any of those movies ever again. But yeah, it was a fun awkward. It was like endearingly awkward.
Well, it's funny picking this up because we were just in the car yesterday and we were talking about an experience we were having with like the Agatha All Along show. And the reception that was happening at the time of us filming this. This is after Agatha episode 6.
It's right before episode 7.
Yeah. So like 5 days out of every 365 days in a year, I tend to lose my cool on some people in the comments. That's my batting average. I noticed.
I feel like
you
that
never know when those 5 days are going to come, but they'll show up.
The many facets on the diamond of public interaction. The line between just being people on the internet and having a show.
Yeah, you got to engage with your audience. Engage.
And sometimes
then you get mad. Don't read the comments. What are you doing?
Yeah. But hey, when you start raging back and forth, then that comment thread gets big. People jump in and
it always. Nine times out of 10, it just makes it worse.
Tax your soul for engagement.
Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. And then it got us talking about some other stuff because it got us talking about Rings of Power, which is like not one of our big viewed stuff, but the reception specifically, because we were noticing like kind of a general reception, which is that we were trying to kind of figure it out together. And it was that I tend to get way more shit, even if we are like of pretty much the same opinion.
Yeah, it's weird.
I tend to get way more flack. And I kind of saw it in action when it came to Venom 2. No, Venom 3 last night when we went to go watch it.
It's so funny. It's like a good microcosm for that.
Because I was saying like it's weird how like maybe because I can be a little bit more like just very direct when I'm not liking something, even in the heat of the moment, like a reaction, like I've noticed you'll generally wait, you know.
I like to process. I often don't just know quite how I feel until I've had a second to collect it all.
Yeah. So even if we end up of the same or similar opinion, it usually wait till like just the review part after a reaction to talk about it. Whereas like I might feel like I'm 3/4 of the way through. I'm like, this is boring. You know, I just like, say it out loud or make jokes to make. That's the other part that people misinterpret about us is that if we're making jokes, that means we're actually having fun with the show, not at the show. Yeah. Normally, if we're bored, we're not actually making jokes. But anyway, so
if you're bored, it's like, oh god, I don't know, make a noise or something. Just comment, find something to comment about.
Find something. So we got something to cut to. But and Venom 3, like when the movie ended, I was like, I really like that, and you like did not seem to like it, right? Like in the theater, you didn't. Like you really didn't seem to like it.
Sure.
And I was surprised. And then when we do the review, I was like, oh, this is gonna be the time when John gets crap. But then you managed to articulate it, and I'm like, wow, that's how he knows how to. You're really good with your language there because you know how to communicate in a way where I can just be like, this is boring, this sucks. Here's what I like, but I also hate this, you know? Just like, especially if I really don't like something. Whereas what you just said about your dad was kind of eye-opening to me of this sort of benefit. I feel like there's a lot of reasons why you can be sort of the benefit of the doubt human being, where even if you really don't like something, you'll find a way to naturally still feel for the things you did. Like you can isolate things and like it.
Yeah.
Whereas I will isolate things out of like logic and sure, this looks good. Yeah, you know, like this movie looks good. That acting is good, sure, but that's not what I'm feeling right now. What I'm feeling is this part of me that doesn't like this, and that's the part that can often get a lot of shit. So then the jokes suddenly sound like I'm an asshole. Whereas like you can make jokes and you'll make a lot of sarcastic jokes. And then I was just finding myself going like, what is it that you do that I don't do of why this reception doesn't happen? It could just come down to the basic fact that you're probably just more likable than me in terms of the general warmth that you exude with your empathy.
Come on, you are such a warm guy. You can have fun, you know, cracking the whip of cracking wise, you know, but
I can definitely see on camera how I can come across as the not as warm guy because I like the sarcastic,
I like the contrast
persona. I like that a lot, so that's why.
And that gives me stuff like that gives us a bit of a straight man and a you know whatever the not straight man guy is.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm just been rambling.
You've always been throwing me stuff, and I'll kind of catch it and be like, ooh.
Yeah, I know. We've been really good at like the pass back and forth. You're recording that camera, Ted?
Ted, once you cut that camera, close the laptop behind me.
He said,
there's so much.
You cut it? The camera cuts every 30 minutes.
Ted, do you need to wait?
God damn it, Ted. So, is that your parents when talking about stuff? I tried giving like this really unfluid assessment of you.
No,
because as it was one of those things where as I was talking, my mind was
fascinating.
My mind was going further down of like, oh, but then also with the way John was treated in school, and then so as I was talking about your parents, I was getting this other visual in my mind, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something here to unpack. So I will let you primarily talk now about like with your parents. Was that where you learned to kind of have a viewing experience from your parents? Or are they like that? I feel like your mom, I've always heard your mom be a little bit rougher sometimes when it came to certain opinions.
Well,
or is she or am I wrong about that interpretation?
My mom can get interested in anything. She is the one of all of us who like I'll wander through the room and she will be watching. She'll be totally engrossed in some random movie, and so I think part of me gets a certain sense of like yeah, I'm kind of interested by everything in life, and that pertains to movies too. Like, there's not a genre or type of story I generally just don't want to hear about, you know. And it's easy to get pulled into anything. And yeah, I mean, my dad certainly introducing both the filmmaking side of things to all of us, and I feel like my dad and my everybody has their critical eye. I feel like my dad and my sister vibe in a certain way of like they will have I associate them as having a slightly more particular taste and a more sort of like.
Might have been your sister I was thinking of.
Could be. I mean, yeah. Like, I feel like they vibe in the sense of like they will know exactly how they feel, and some stuff is just not for them and they're not about it, and like they can articulate that really well. And my mom and I certainly, like, we'll both have things we don't like, but generally I feel like we're a bit more not easy to please, but just sort of like more, I guess benefit of the doubty maybe. I'm not quite sure what it is. 'Cause I mean, we all love and just enjoy being able to behold stuff like that. But I guess for me, that moment with my dad that we mentioned before, now in this moment anyway, does kind of hit me to that idea of like he was aware that I liked the thing or was interested in the thing, and so he at least bothered not to be dismissive. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, that's the word that I was looking for, is like I care not to be dismissive, if anything. Like I don't care, I don't feel any like overwhelming pressure to like be super nice or like make sure to sugarcoat all criticism, but like what I don't want to do is be dismissive, because it's I remember 2 times in high school and stuff like that, and we talked about this before, but it's like you grow up and you learn that there are things and that things can be good or bad, and then you learn that there's a valley of nuance between good and bad. And especially growing up and high school experiences into film school and college, like there became just that binary, like the Mr. Sunday Movies rating scale of just like best movie ever, worst movie ever, and anything that's bad is like got no quality to even entertain whatsoever. Like, why would you even bother that? This is trash, some idiots made it, like that I don't care as much for as a flavor, but all I really want is just like an interesting expounding on anything. Like, I don't care if you think something sucked, like that's cool, but when it stops there, that bothers me. So it's like I feel like most everything you see is okay or pretty good or kind of not good, and then certain things are great and terrible, but like everything is kind of an opportunity to see what worked and what didn't work. And I just find that fun. Like, it's just like a fun prompt to me. It always, to some degree or another, has been just like, hey, we get to take in a movie and like, hey, maybe it was successful or not, but a lot of people worked on this, which like isn't an excuse to not criticize it. But it's just like, I don't have any interest in I don't care for dunking. If it's the 2 things I'm trying to avoid, is being dismissive and dunking on stuff, which, it's like people really enjoy that. And that's like a whole thriving lane of expression. And it has been for history. And I can enjoy a roast or whatever, or a rant, but, in certain tones. Like, I'll listen to, 90 minutes of people talk about why Borderlands doesn't work, as long as like the conversation about it is like you clearly engaged with this and at least gave it a shot to be what it wanted to be, versus, when certain commentary.
Is the camera recording?
Oh,
I got a timer, Ted. Camera's recording? All right.
Can you actually close that laptop?
I didn't even know you meant that.
Yeah, I did be that for real.
And I were like, that's funny. Funny joke.
I mean, it's funny because it's true. Close the laptop. I lost my train of thought there. The 2 hours of my life I'll never get back criticism is something that's never sat well with me if you're gonna be in any kind of platform, because it's super cool to be able to watch stuff and get to talk about it and to bat it back and forth. And so that's all I want. I'm like, if anybody saw this, I just want to be able to stand by whatever criticism I had and feel like I got the right words to articulate my feeling.
Yeah.
But unless it's something that feels like it was developed in bad faith or is like adversarial to the audience in a way that isn't artistically interesting, or it just seems like no one cared at all to put any hard work or effort into it, like, then I might rant on something. But I'm not really compelled toward that side of things. Like, most of the time I don't feel like dunking can be fun, and certainly people are great at writing it. But I remember like back in the old days when you would read reviews, sometimes I would read a review and be like, I feel like you are serving your, your writing voice more than you're actually serving the review of what this thing you went to see was. And I don't want to fall into that if I can help it.
Yeah, but it can get you some clicks, you know.
Sure thing, can. I mean, and I'm sure tomorrow, the next movie we review will be something that I'm just like incensed by, and I'm just like, let me tell you why this sucks. But yeah, if it's anything, yeah, I don't care to dunk it. I don't care to be dismissive, if possible.
Big eyeballs on characters and thumbnails.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the pitch meeting style.
Slam Hollywood.
Yeah.
But I like all kinds of things. I like all kinds of YouTube channels and all kinds of reviews and opinions.
Yeah.
And it's really tempting to want to go down like the talk of YouTube and all that, but that's not why we're here. We could do that on any other podcast. And by the way, I think when you meant with the Mr. Sunday movies, just as a quick clarification, that is, as we know, it's a satire rating.
Yeah. To be clear,
Yeah.
I was listening to the Joker 2, and they literally, I think it was that one, or it was in hindsight of their Joker 2 review, and they literally had to be like, if you want to know the review, listen to the review. Like the rating scale is a joke. It's a thumb up or down.
Yeah, it's a satire.
Yeah.
And we're aware of that.
Yeah. All the love and respect to Mr. Sunday movies.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting talking about all these things with how your mindset around movies formulated.
Yeah.
Is watching movies with your family. Because I do have like memories of just like sitting awkwardly. Because I didn't when I say sitting awkwardly, not because your family is
we were all staring at
you're
you.
such a tribe. You're not welcome here.
You're not a Humphrey.
What are you doing in my house?
He's not passing the scan. What do we do?
I didn't have that level of comfortability with my family growing up that you had, right? Where you guys just seem to you guys can just talk at a table with each other. And watching you guys, like sometimes I remember I have like a very distinct memory watching you guys, like watching Robin Hood, the one with Russell Crowe and ripping it apart while I was like way in the corner of the table and you guys are in the living room and I was just
completely
watching.
forgotten I've seen that.
That's my only experience to that movie. I didn't even finish it. I only watched like a little bit of it. Do you find that you are very comfortable with expressing not just your voice in your opinions, but what about your emotions with them? Are you someone who do you guys cry together? If something's happening, do you guys hold back? Like, what is the level of comfortability? I know laughing together is something you guys share.
Yeah.
Because you guys all have the same laugh. You guys all have the Humphrey laugh.
Yes, we have a few.
You have the Humphrey scoff, as I call it.
Yeah.
That one. If like something's just like a weird joke, there's just
yeah. It's like it's
four of you have it.
It's a bemused snort of some kind, or it's like a glottal something or other. We certainly do. I feel like I'm probably the most reserved at home for whatever reason. I'm not even sure why. I'm more
because you saved the tears for the camera.
That's right. I'm bottling them up because nothing is worse than finishing a cry movie you didn't cry during.
And everyone's like,
and then everyone's
can't believe you didn't cry.
Can't believe you are so hard as stone.
Incel.
What moves you? Yeah. Not that it hasn't happened though. I think I probably cried when we all watched Everything Everywhere. This is the most recent time
really?
I can remember that.
Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't look around all that much when that's happening. Like, I guess I feel, I don't know, like it's weird. I'm maybe a little bit more self-conscious than I would be just in a theater where it's like no one's looking at me. I guess it's that. It's like there's the potential for people to be looking at you and to be like checking what your response is, which I think is lovely and fun. And it says more about me that I should just be willing to be like, yeah, I know, right? But yeah, I'm probably maybe a little bit more reserved that way at home. But generally, I feel like still very much, especially if we're all sharing a movie or whatever, pretty upfront with how I'm feeling about it or whatever.
What was the first movie you can recall that truly made you bawl?
Oh, that's a tough one. Oh, that's hard. Truly? Maybe The Lion King.
Oh, really?
It could have been. I remember one day I was just replaying the Simba calling out for Mufasa's scene in my head, and I started to cry.
Yeah, type of movie with the Wonder Woman.
Sure, yeah.
Romance that.
Completely, yeah. I was sitting there. I remember it. I was in like a navy sweater. I was waiting to go to the park. It was back in the olden times where you had to be wait to like drive to the park or something. And I was just, for some reason, just help somebody. Anybody.
Yeah.
And just replaying that in my head certainly made me weep. God, yeah, that's probably the first one. I can think of other notable times where like a movie would have moved me like that, but yeah, I guess that would be the earliest.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like we're warmed up. I'm gonna go straight for the gut punch now.
Cool.
John.
Let's do that.
All right.
thing.
Cool. So you experience. This is something I don't think a lot of people really know about you. And I feel like this would actually explain a lot of your extreme empathy. Because there's two versions of how an individual can turn out. Extreme empathy.
Yeah. Take you to an Idols concert, baby.
My favorite thing is when we're laughing and then I glance over to Ted and he's just not emoting at all.
That's a good PA, Ted.
And you're like, damn it, is this what it's like on YouTube when we're making jokes and this is the people in the comments who are annoyed by us?
It's okay.
He's the comment box. He's like, stop making jokes. I came here for the therapy section.
Take it seriously, guys. This is a classic. All eyes on you now, Ted.
Anyway, Ted, but I was asking John.
We're cutting to the throat. Gut punch time.
There's been two versions I've seen of what happens with individuals, and you've kind of become this amalgamation of it all in a weird way. And I feel like I talk so much about your family because I feel like your family in a weird way has, not in a weird way, in a really positive way, has helped ground and save you from what I've seen happen with a lot of other people. Like you were very much, we went to the same school of 30 kids from, were you there in kindergarten?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you were there in kindergarten and you went until first grade. From first to eighth grade.
First to eighth grade.
And I was there. You were bullied for, like, you were the one who people bullied. You were the one who people targeted. Like, you were that kid, the cliche, the Peter Parker before he had spider powers, right?
Yes, before I grew my hair out.
That's who you were. And that probably ended around like eighth grade time. I feel like this one started to subside.
Started to transition.
I think at that point, I remember being like at the eighth grade.
We all got to eighth grade and we're like, man, we all made it through this together.
Yeah,
we're all right.
And everyone like loved you, but everyone was dicks to you. And like I had my moment in time with John where I would be that way, and then I remember like crying to you on the steps in like our 20s in Apollo. Do you remember that?
I remember.
I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
It's fucking weird if I remember that. And you're like, well, dude, you don't remember? I apologize, like really heartfelt about what I did when I was a little kid to you.
Does ring a bell?
I'm just participating.
What did you do to me as a kid?
And John being the John he is, like, it's all right.
I get it, man. I know you're probably going through something or whatever, or you just didn't know me the same way as you do now. Like, whatever. Stuff happens.
But I kind of feel like that has helped shape your outlook on films as well, more than just your family, because I say your family, from what I've observed, because of how your family's just known to be very loving and tight-knit. And sure, you guys get in your little squabbles like any family does. It doesn't sound like the true traumatic shit you hear from like a domestically violent family.
No.
Right, not like at all. Like and I see it. Like you guys really do get along, and you guys really do like it's a very nurturing environment with each other.
Yeah, you're lucky that way.
And I feel like that really helped allow you to, at least in my interpretation, to still be able to socialize and be able to not just become a hardcore introvert. Because I feel that like introvert, extrovert, or whichever way it is for you, I feel that like there's
bit of an ambivert, I think is the term now.
Yeah, you're that cool guy who can like bring a notebook to like a busy ass club, and then somehow a girl will still approach you. It's from like, whatever.
There's nothing in the book. It's just scribbles. My handwriting is just that bad.
But so I think that's a really cool way to do it. But I kind of see it in the way of how oftentimes you will look at movies and such. So it got me curious about a very specific movie question I'm not sure you've ever thought about. Ooh. Is there a movie character where you did see yourself the most in regards to this subject matter, where you felt that you identified to it? Maybe it doesn't have to be so literal in terms of bullying, but perhaps the emotion that it generated.
We good?
You have a car in the garage?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
They were asking if we have a car in the garage.
We have two, in fact.
We keep this in the video. What's going on, Ted? Do we move the cars? I just asked a really deep question, Ted.
Yeah, that's what we like. This is the random, little variables we like to throw in to keep things interesting.
I know how hard it took, like 3 interruptions to get this question. Now we have to move the car.
This is good. Yeah. Leave everything rolling. This is in real time.
So can you answer the question?
Yes, yes. What was the question? What like a movie character that I would have identified with? I don't know if it's the first, but what comes immediately to mind was I remember seeing Superbad and really vibing with the Michael Cera character, being like, oh, that's a version of me. Like, you know, like I know at least this part of the dynamic, and two, like, you know, Seth and Evan aren't uncool, but they're also not in any clique or crowd, you know, and that sort of matched a lot of my experiences. Like the thing about you know, growing up in elementary and junior high and stuff was like, yeah, once you get to 8th grade and everyone's like, you know, we're all together, like there is that. Within that was at least an ability to kind of bounce between groups, because every group or person is sort of mercurial, and even people who are not always prone to being kind to you will sometimes be. And then throughout high school, certainly, like I don't feel like at a certain point I found a few kind of communal homes, but yeah, I was often kind of feeling like I was bouncing between all the groups that existed. So I feel like those characters kind of match that, and just sort of, yeah, the awkward, like, you know, kind of semi-shy, but wanting to, you know, you have all the aspirations of like being cool and being the party hero or whatever in some way, shape, or form. And that movie, for whatever reason, spoke to that sense of like, you know, I crave a certain amount of adventure, but I'm also sort of, yeah, feeling like this sort of odd little margin creature or something. But yeah, I don't know, that comes to mind. Just the emotional display on, you know, that character throughout the movie just sort of matched vibes I would have been feeling, certainly.
What character of the opposite sex do you think you identify with the most?
Ooh. You know, for whatever reason, I always identified with at least up to a certain point. Obviously, not all of this story circumstances apply to me, but Peggy on Mad Men was always a character I sort of felt. I don't know, like especially early on. You know, she's kind of well-meaning and fresh-faced, but like. You know, is learning how to kind of contend with, you know, the pace and the needs and the sort of like thick skin you need to have to do all these things. And she's in this field that's like somewhat, that's both creative, but it's also, you know, there's a certain amount of pace and you know, sort of that character is called to rise out of that, you know, I don't know, shy state or whatever. And so for whatever reason, yeah, that was a character that always kind of clicked with me, and I always felt kind of resonant with. God, I know there's like another answer to this, but it'll come to me as we go.
John will shoot it on his phone and insert it in.
I'm totally the type to do that. See, that's the thing now is like usually, you know, I'm trying to let go and just kind of be more accepting of the fluidity. But yeah, like any on the spot question is usually like, what is an actor? What are characters? There's so many. Well, here's one. You know, like here's one that comes to mind, and then afterwards I'll be like, oh, I know the exact one.
Well, I mean, the advantage of knowing you is I could specify a little bit more of this stuff is Ed Wood, the movie Ed Wood. You've cited that as your favorite.
Yeah.
What is it about the character that you like? For me, when I think of Ed Wood, that's the man I fear being the most. That is my biggest fear. That's what I feel a lot.
Yeah.
Like, so why is it the one that clicks with you the most? And what is it about? Maybe not the real life Ed Wood, but the portrayal of that of Ed Wood that really hits for you.
Yeah, I mean it's like the nightmare of who you don't want to be, and but I guess that movie really nicely encapsulates, at least through its own filter, this portrait of somebody who's really passionate and who has like a vision and who goes for it despite whatever the outcome will be. And I heard a TED talk. That left a big impression on me not long ago. It was a short one. It was by Ethan Hawke, and it was basically coming to grips with the idea that, you know, once you've made anything, the reception to it is sort of out of your hands, and you have to be willing to play the fool and willing to just kind of put all that you have into whatever the thing is, and then from there on, once you finish that process and put it out into the world, it's done. And so Ed Wood is a movie that I think really speaks to that in a way. And so like, yeah, you don't want to be Ed Wood, and it's scary to think that you could be, but you also just have to take the risk of being that, you know. And
how old were you when you, roughly, what's your rough guess that you saw it when you first saw it?
Maybe like 14 or something like that.
And did you find that you identified with it like when watching it at that age?
I probably didn't fully understand what I probably didn't quite have these, terms to put it in, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly the misfit element. It's about a bunch of sort of esoteric, oddball people who are, kind of endearing in their own way, and they're all just trying to get together and make something cool. And also, it's packaged up like, old monster movies that I grew up watching and stuff like that. So, from both the aesthetic angle, but also the, treatise on, just like the artistic process that it is. And then, yeah, it's just like a portrait of a character who I'm sure in the movie is a bit more lovable and sympathetic to some degree or another. Just, yeah, all those elements. It has like a wistful quality that I enjoy. I think bittersweetness is something that I particularly resonate with in any kind of art. And certainly that movie has that, but it also has, a sort of heartfelt passion for all that this is. And you look back and you're like, well, hailed as like the worst filmmaker of all time, but that's kind of an interesting mantle to have because nobody gives that. There are some truly bad, unwatchable movies that'll make you mad, and those movies don't get that mantle. It's like stuff you enjoy watching. So like even in there is like the paradox. You don't want to be Tommy Wiseau or James Nguyen or whoever. I mean, like maybe you do though, because like that thing is interesting to me, and it's at the core of what excites and scares me about creating anything.
You achieve that by accident.
Well, yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah,
you got to be striving for greatness, but what kind of greatness is not up to you. And I think that's
be the best of the worst.
Yeah, and it's like terrifying, and it's in some way like the biggest obstacle I find to overcome in terms of like creating things, but also like that is the process to me, is sort of like embracing that and creating in spite of that. And look, we made a movie that's great, that's in the style of these B movies that people don't think are very qualitatively good. Like there's so much intersection. What does good even mean,
Yeah, of course, I get what you mean.
Yeah, so that's all kind of wrapped up in that movie.
What was, let's dissect this a little bit, because I mean, you might not know it from all the, the variety of reactions that we do on this channel, but John is, before we just really went hardcore movie reactions, like horror is undoubtedly your genre. So what was the scariest horror? I like asking this question. Do you know though? I feel like you might know the answer. Is the scariest movie theater experience you had?
Scariest movie theater experience. One comes to mind. It was really fun too. I'm trying to think if there was anything where I was just like, oh God, I'm not sure I want to be here. There's probably something when I was like too young to remember quite what it was. I mean, I remember the last time I was really like jumping and sort of like, oh God, I don't want to see what's around the next corner, was when we went to that Drag Me to Hell test screening.
Oh yeah.
That was like the most simultaneously scary and fun I think a movie had been for me. And it was one of the last times I remember being in the theater and being like, scared to some variety or another.
That was one of the scariest movie theater experiences for me, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, that was like it was a test screening, so we didn't see any previews.
Knew nothing about it.
Knew nothing before we went in. And so it was, they were like, you want to watch the PG-13 or the R-rated version?
Yeah.
And like,
we'll go with the R-rated version. Yeah.
Like, this is terrifying.
Yeah. And I feel like, there might be something more, nasty.
I don't feel like people really say that about the movie now. But
at
the time.
In the moment. I mean, I remember going into Human Centipede and being very nervous. Like the movie itself didn't scare me that way, but that was the last time I was in a theater being like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'll leave.
Well, I think the big question is then, why do you love horror so much?
Oh man, it comes back to Halloween first and foremost, because some of my earliest memories are like the
holiday.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The actual just ritual cultural experience of decorating, and I grew up near a pretty elaborate, this really cool haunted display that they would do every year that doesn't exist anymore. It was called the Hallowed Haunting Grounds, and I always remembered being very just sort of enamored with that kind of stuff, and having those formative moments of like, at first kind of going through and not fully understanding, and then sort of becoming scared of it, and then overcoming that fear, and then coming to really enjoy this ritual every year and having it to look forward to. And then from there, you sort of spread out into like, combine that with cinema house, eventually you find horror movies. And for whatever reason, just, big old spooky haunted houses and thunderstorms and, howling and stuff like that just always has gripped me for one reason or another. And then beyond that, I mean, you can, do all the exploring that, we've trodden in, the analysis of like, why do people love horror? Like, you get the safe space to explore harsh and, unsettling things, and I think that's fun. And I don't know, yeah, I'm always curious about this because I have so many like ideas as to why, but I feel like I'll never be fully sure because yeah, part of you goes like, why do you love all this? You know, sometimes my mom would ask like, why do you love all these violent, ugly movies or whatever? But I don't know. I feel like stuff is interesting about that, and you can have fun while exploring the harsher, more difficult aspects of life, or see things that you would never ever see or want to see in an environment where, you know, it's kind of fun.
This just popped into my head. I've never thought about this till right now.
Yeah.
You haven't seen The Office, have you? Like the James Spader season?
Not much of it. I've seen like an episode or two.
He's got this great speech in there where he's like, everything is sex. It just goes into why.
I think
like
I've seen this clipped a little bit. Yeah, yeah.
It's so funny. But for some reason in my mind kind of flashed to that speech.
Everything
and then it made,
is horror.
But what made me think about that is kind of like how some people try to think of how to say this because of the freaking platform this goes on YouTube without like getting in trouble here. Is that, you know, sometimes we have like experiences growing up with our families and whatever that might translate into the way we like to sexually experiment. And, you know, we might be drawn to certain types of things or whatever. And so I kind of feel like with horror, we have our own real life horrors that we deal with. And this is part of like, it's kind of like a kink that we're experiencing. So I feel that's like my little theory that just popped into my head of a maybe.
No, I think that's absolutely.
I don't mean like we're like sexually getting off on horror.
No.
I mean, some people might, but I'm saying like sometimes when we watch these things, it's like for me, supernatural horror terrifies me because growing up Catholic and really believing in Catholicism growing up and in the afterlife and the dead and ghosts and stuff, that I think because of that, there's that I'm experiencing the kink of horror, of being terrified when watching these movies.
Yeah.
I don't know if you get where I'm going with that.
I think so, because like all that stuff roots back to something else. And then, yeah, if you think like, you know, I often find just like everyday waking reality kind of bewildering and unsettling at times. And yeah, there's a lot of anxiety that goes into like little things, and then there are the big scary things to think about. And like like in a way there's horror in everything, and I think that's certainly cathartic. Is like there's horror is one of the most broad genres. There's so many subgenres and there's so many kinds of horror you can explore there. And so like supernatural stuff doesn't get as far under my skin, but stuff that's like about real life, you know, depravity certainly will like kind of unsettle and disturb me and make me sort of question every shadow a little bit.
Because there's a lot of worries and fears that might just conjure up, like conjuring. And there might be like random worries and fears that we get, and I feel like that's why, you know, I've heard some women tell me that. I'm not saying this is the case for all women. I just heard some women tell me this, that that's why like true crime often is appealing to women. Yeah. And
you go toward the thing and you kind of, it's almost like a form of exposure therapy.
And so much of true crime is about what happens to the victims are a lot of times women. But a lot of women love like the market for true crime often seems to be women.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, but why is that when it's like the terrible thing for them? And so I can imagine, there's got to be like a different vocabulary for it other than the word kink. That's just like the analogy I was able to.
Well, there's like a tabooness about it, and like horror is always like and there's that quality of like horror for a time or in certain, you know, contexts is like the bastard genre. Like, you know, it's not the most respected genre. It's had to kind of claw its way to the elevated horror days. And it's, you know, it's a place where like I guess the cinemisfits would congregate before, and two like
to interrupt, do you see what I mean about what you just said?
Yeah, no,
like,
totally, 100%.
That works within your personality of everything we've talked about. I'm like, that is what we've talked about who John was growing up.
Yeah, and I would meet later, like, you know, a lot of people I would meet involved with like horror stuff would often be quite nice. Not to say there aren't, you know, predators and bad folks there, because they live in every place, but yeah, I've noticed a streak of empathy in a lot of horror adjacent folk, and that at a young age probably helped draw me further. Certainly,
I've noticed with you, it's like sometimes a lot of time always I'm really speaking well today. It's a good thing we have a podcast.
I have the best words. It's okay. I'll keep thinking about which. I'll keep thinking about some of these previous answers to come up with updated answers too.
You'll be drawn to outcasts, people who are misunderstood.
Yeah.
And I noticed your mind will off, and it could be like this with movies or shows or characters, and you won't really be drawn to it if it's like a popular thing. Like, I'll give you a great example, a very recent one. You don't seem that enthusiastic about Joker 1 or like defending it. I'm not saying you don't like it, like you like it, like it's fine, but that's like, oh, you would think that would be the one of the ones I'm talking about,
sure.
or the outcast and stuff. But the movie's like so much about him being an outcast and everyone rooting for him. But the response by the public in terms of movie audiences, he was accepted.
Yeah.
And then Joker,
to $1 billion worth. Yeah.
Joker 2 comes out. Audience doesn't accept this.
Yeah.
But then you'll come in and be like, well, maybe. And then you think about that. You're like, but I kind of like it now.
That's a fantastic example because that's an instance where I'm like, well, it's not just trash. Like it's so maddening because there's so much good work in there, and it's worth at least acknowledging that stuff because I would be less upset if it was just that bad, right. If there was no, good work being squandered among the other, foibles of the movie or whatever.
Yeah. So is that why my theory has been like, is that why you are so drawn to the voice of Rob Zombie? Because Rob Zombie's often critically panned. Audiences seem so very iffy on the guy too. Yeah. And you are so enthusiastic about the guy. And I like him overall. Like, I really do, I believe I saw a few of his movies before you did. Like, I really liked the title of the channel was inspired from The Devil's Rejects. Yeah. And so I really did love that movie. After that, it's kind of really iffy with Rob Zombie.
Sure.
So why do you think this is why? Perhaps I'm not trying to be, the power of suggestion here. I'm really asking.
It's in there.
Yeah.
It's in there, certainly. I don't know if that's what initially drew me to him, but it's certainly probably in the soup now. I mean, Rob Zombie exists at this crossroads that's just like a whole bunch of stuff that's for me. And also within that, I find his particular voice and sensibility compelling and interesting for some reason. And certainly there are better movies of his than others. And there are certain ones that I would choose to go out of my way to argue about. I'll argue on behalf of certain ones more than others. But yeah, it's a combination of I like the pastiche of aesthetics that he is often throwing together. I feel like his process is interesting, and he at least always, to my eye, has a distinct vision, and whether it's being referential or not, it's usually not being as in your face about that stuff as certain other people can be. So I feel like he, to me, has a unique voice and embodies that sort of scuzzy 70s era that he's often hearkening back to in a way that feels authentic to me and that feels kind of rare. And he blends together this compelling ugliness that I often very much enjoy. It's weird. Horror can be very ugly, and I like ugly art sometimes, or I like art that uses ugliness or harshness as part of the paints in the palette, And I feel like he does that in a way that really feels distinct, at least to me. And certain ones are more sort of oh, he's just doing his thing, and then other ones where I'm like, oh yeah, this is a swing. These days I'm like, man, I wish he could get a budget to try another Lords of Salem or something that's a little more out there. But yeah, just his blend is just for me generally, and he, especially through the music, it's I like a lot of different kinds of music, but I like that blend of loud rock, but it's not so overwrought that it makes you feel bad. It's still fun most of the time, and it's conceptual, and it's based in all of these movies and things that I love, and yeah, it's kind of just all the things right there. And he's making movies, he's making music, he's painting, he's doing all sorts of stuff that I love, and I like his versions of all that. So yeah, it's just a big soup. And then, too, you come back around and everyone's dogpiling on the Munsters. And yeah, I want to be like, come on, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that that's the number one or even in the top 5 reasons I'm drawn to him. But it certainly is now part of the thing because, yeah, I feel like I'm in the minority of, Rob Zombie enthusiasts.
Because I mean, okay, to clarify something from way earlier in this conversation, you're like the mantle of the movie of Monkey Bone is like, because John was known to like everything, and
Yeah.
still kind of sometimes gets that reputation. And Monkey Bone was like the first movie John can use.
I
not
remember.
like.
I didn't like
But-
that one.
And I think the misinterpretation that happens is you're not like a contrarian, like just be. A contrarian is often like, this is popular, so let me tell you why it sucks. Oh,
Yeah.
this sucks. Let me tell you why it's good. It's just you usually find a genuine way to the heart of something.
Most things are just all right. And so I don't feel like I need to say anything sucks that's just all right. Like,
I agree.
I don't know. Yeah, I certainly, I remember too having that angst about like, I don't just like everything. I got to start coming up with some criticisms.
Yeah.
But I am grateful that, and I think you
McCoy Jandra is dealing with this past.
yeah, I mean, shouts out to
I
Cole.
gotta start not liking stuff.
Shouts out to Cole. Well, and I mean too, I think that's fun. Like that's part of the fun is that yeah, certain people are just quite enthusiastic in their own way, and as long as I can understand where you're coming from, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like have that opinion. And so yeah, I certainly felt the pressure at a younger age to like be a bit more critical. But I feel like now, and especially for a long time, like, and you certainly helped me get more comfortable. You have to bridge that gap of like realizing that like criticism's okay and not everything's going to be great. And you can still be really chuffed on something that, yeah, might have blemishes on it. You don't, just because there are criticisms doesn't mean you don't have to enjoy it. Also, you can hold those two things in mind.
Yeah.
And now I feel very comfortable just letting something hit me and saying how I feel about it. And a lot of the time, yeah, I do care to acknowledge in whatever movie what might be working. Like that's the fun to me of any prompt. That's when we went into Twilight, I made a conscious decision. I was like, I know people clown on these movies. I know that it's easy to want to come in here and be like, let's roast this thing. And I'm like, I want to actually see what this is trying to offer me and see if I like that and see what about it might be good and what about it might actually be bad. And that's way more fun and interesting to me. And I feel like I try to apply that to everything movie-wise.
That's beautiful.
I also
No
came
wonder
up with a
people like
couple answers to that previous question.
Oh, you got?
Yes, I think the
Which previous question?
you asked me what like on screen like a leading actress performance or whatever that I would have resonated with or something.
Did you think about this when I was talking?
Well, what it clicked in.
So
no,
while I was talking, you
no,
weren't listening.
It
You're
came
like,
to me out of nowhere because it's related to the other two. Because there's like a Bermuda Triangle of Christina Ricci. Because Casper, her character in Casper, because she's like the lead in Casper, and she's like a little bit of the misfit. Again, it's that misfit thing of like she's just in this big haunted house, and she's just like a well-meaning kid, but she's also having these sort of coming of age struggles and stuff like that, and then eventually through spooky hijinks like finds love. Like that's
God, you're really getting me to realize how much Christina Ricci really was like a big part of the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm just like only realizing that now.
Or like
Jenna
the sister
Ortega really is like the new Christina Ricci. She really is.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm sure I still feel like there's another more definitive answer, but yeah, like her. And I remember the little sister in Hocus Pocus definitely. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of me a little bit.
I feel like for me, even though it's not about me, but once in a while throwing something about me.
Please.
Is the girl in 8th grade.
Oh, I want to see that. I still haven't seen it. I'm
What?
the worst
You?
Bo Burnham fan. Yeah.
You're the one who
well, see now
this
now
guy introduced me to Bo Burnham before everyone knew who Bo Burnham. Remember you showed me like weird videos that this guy
and
was making.
the old
like
bedroom
when it was like
vids.
underground fans of Bo Burnham before he became like a YouTube sensation.
when it was just 3.1 for
wow.
apple pie.
Oh
yeah.
no, man, that movie for sure. I'm surprised. Like it's kind of surprising when you see like, oh, a dude in his 20s wrote this. When it feels so apt. Like I got so much anxiety watching it.
I feel like that movie
yeah.
will hit me like a train when I finally see it, because I have a feeling I will probably heavily identify with the Elsie Fisher character.
Wow, that is shocking that you haven't seen that.
I
Holy
hoard
shit.
stuff I haven't seen now. It's so funny to be in the position that we're in.
Damn, that's so wild to me.
Because I used to, through film school and being in film communities throughout the, town, you have that pressure of like, I'm going to see everything, or at least come across like I've seen a lot. And now I'm sort of like, oh, good opportunities. All these things I haven't seen. I got to save this for the right moment. Ted, what's a female character that you identified with?
Female character you identify with, Ted.
I'm not asking the question. I feel like your phrasing the question was more nuanced than I'm putting it here. This is the question I'm going to come out of here
Gina
thinking
Carano,
about.
Fast and Furious 6, baby.
Yeah. Julia Roberts, Pretty Woman. I'm Christian Harloff's first crush. There's another movie I don't think I've seen all of.
Yeah, and it's on the list we have.
Hey.
You got one, Ted?
I'm not good on the spot.
Yeah, see, Ted knows what I'm talking
Well,
about.
you might be fine on the spot. Ted, poke your head in the camera here for a sec.
Yeah.
Let's choose. Help me choose some. No, on my side. Help me choose some questions. I have like a billion questions that I could ask any episode, and I rarely rely on these because otherwise I'm just gonna get focused on like, just ask that question, Greg.
Yeah.
Just choose one that you think might be of interest.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9.
Oh my God. This is funny that you chose number 9 because earlier today, John said, well, I know if you ask me this question, I know what my answer is. Do you know what the question is?
I have a follow-up question. Is it, do I want to relive an experience exactly as it was with a movie for the first time?
Yes, that's the question.
Or
The question is, what movie do you wish you could experience for the first time again and why?
Or do I want to repeat like a do-over of that? If it's like reliving the experience, I think it would be so much fun to go back to that day we saw Trick or Treat. Like that was one of the most fun,
That's
like,
great.
again, test screening, no idea what we're walking into. I've never seen anything like this. I think that was even before I had seen like a Creep Show.
The first anthology.
Yeah, so I was like, this is so weird. I don't even know how I feel about this yet. And then it became one of my favorite movies. And you know, as a Halloween kid, and as specifically like, you know, horror movies and Halloween are not all synonymous with each other. And yeah, as like the official horror movie of that, I was like, oh, this is everything. This is everything I love.
That's a great one.
If I could, like, I don't remember very much.
That was a test screening, by the way. Yeah,
it
we
was
saw it like a year before it ever came out.
They shelved it for a couple
And
years.
we were silent. It never got a theatrical release, and it was like amazing. Now it's like a huge cult film.
And now it's got its place in the pantheon. Or just Men in Black again, just to have like a more vivid recollection, because that's such a great movie, and like to go back and see that for the first time, I think would be great, because that movie holds up, and it's like, you know, an achievement of any time.
Nice answer.
Is
nice.
Men in Black.
So not Children of Men.
I will go back. I would do that one over so I could pick up on one very specific thread of symbolism. Yes. That I feel very silly not making the direct connection to.
Ted, I got like 45 questions here.
Ted, you're going to have to be jumping in and out,
I
bud.
got like a bunch. That was only one page. You can just choose. You could scroll. You can do whatever you want with this laptop right now, Ted. It's all you, Ted.
It's all you, Teddy.
This is how hard I work.
Hey. No, it's good. You got to learn how to
Ted to ask the
delegate tasks. This is an interactive part. Pretty soon we'll have like a viewer be able to tune in, look at your list, and choose a question themselves. We get an interactive portion of the show, you know, have some patrons come on or whatever.
It's weird. I forget all these questions, and when I'm reading them, I'm like, these are good questions.
Yeah, I am a good interviewer.
Like, if only I could remember these on the spot right there.
No, it's real, man. It's charming.
Right? See, look at even Ted. It's hard for Ted to decide
Ted's
too,
like,
because
oh, wow,
Ted's like,
these
these are
pretty
good
good.
questions.
These are
Damn,
pretty
yeah.
good, yeah.
Yeah, he'd have a really fleshed out diary. You know,
Absolutely, you would.
I got to bring this diary gimmick in.
Hey,
I thought of a good way to diary it up is like if I tell people beforehand, like, what's your favorite film quote and why, and like we should end it like if we get like a diary, then you sign your favorite film quote.
yeah,
And then
that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah.
toughie too. There's so many good quotes.
Which one is it? 13? 13? All right. Do you want to ask it, Ted?
Oh, sure.
Go ahead. Put your mouth in there, Ted. You gotta get close.
Come on, Ted. Come on,
You gotta
Ted.
get close to the mic, Ted.
How close?
You gotta get really close, Ted.
What's the most unforgettable movie quote you've heard, and why does it stick with you?
What's the most unforgettable movie quote I've
Thank you,
heard,
Ted.
and why does it stick with me? Ooh,
Ted's working late at night, so thank you,
Yeah.
Ted, for being.
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is from Ed Wood, and I put it as one of my high school
cool.
yearbook quotes for senior year. Was when he meets Orson Welles in the bar, and he's venting about how terrible production is going, and Orson Welles kind of meets him there, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with when I was working on Kane, I was dealing with all this shit, and he gives him this little nugget, and I don't know if he actually said it, but the pearl I think is great, which is he said, visions are worth fighting for. Why spend your life making someone else's dream? Is
That's beautiful. I forgot that.
yeah, and that always kind of just stuck with me as a nice little like guiding light.
I love the philosophy behind that. Remember Jim Carrey's like college commencement speech had something very similar about what his dad said.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's like a trodden probably adage, but it always jumped out at me from that movie in particular.
Well, that's the thing about adages, though, and I find the question about quotes really interesting because I got so many quotes that are not film that are like ingrained in me. They're literally like carved into my cerebellum. Like I just live by them so much so. And it's so easy to disregard a quote. It's so easy to just take a quote and put it up on Instagram or something like that and like swipe past it or just think it's a cliche. But I'm like, well, some cliches are cliches because they exist.
Yeah, because they prove themselves true time and again.
Yeah, and some of these quotes like that are very true. And that's something really difficult to abide by. And I think that's actually a really good quote. What's the exact quote again?
As I remember it, it is visions are worth fighting for. Why spend your life making someone else's dream? One of those.
That's beautiful, especially in a day and age where I think comparison is. I've heard like comparison is the thief of joy, and I think a lot of us have heard that. But I think that social media in particular has sort of cultivated more comparison just by the fact that you can just see everything.
And everyone has the power of editing to make things look sweeter than they are, or everything look like it's great always. Yeah.
So I think staying true to your own unique vision is even harder nowadays. It's so easy to subscribe to what do they want? What are people looking for?
Yeah.
Instead of just kind of doing what you want to do and maybe meeting halfway. If you care about your audience, I feel like you sort of meet halfway.
Yeah, it's like you can't do it just to please an audience, but I feel like, if you're putting your all into it, you probably will at least bring something that shows that you had enough respect for the audience to put your effort in.
Yeah, it's a really good quote.
Or whatever.
Damn. Ted, rule of threes, Ted.
Rule
of threes, Ted.
Come
Get
on,
over here, Ted.
Rule of threes.
Rule of threes, Ted.
Rule of threes. Ty in Clueless, another lady character I heavily identified with growing up. Brittany Murphy, rest in peace. I love her so much, and I'm sad she's not. Her and Anton Yelchin.
Remind me to tell the longest yard story when
Oh, let's go. Let's go.
That's my favorite of John's.
Hey, oh yes, that is definitely
once John did this thing about longest yard, I was like, this will forever be the way I describe what it's like talking with John.
That is, I can't even argue because it is
one story. I'm like, perfect, thank you.
That's a good example of what often happens in my brain, and you can map it over onto other things and be like, oh, I see what's happening here.
What you got, Ted? 17. Ted, you got to read it.
Ted, use that podcast voice, Ted.
This only extends so far, Ted. You get your mouth in there.
All right. What's the most emotionally powerful scene you've ever watched, and how did it affect you?
Ooh. Good one. You came up with that yourself. Good one.
Ooh, man. Most emotionally powerful scene I've ever watched. I don't know if it's recency bias, but I will say, and this will make a lot of sense, I'm sure, but that scene in Everything Everywhere where Waymond is making the plea at the end, he's like, the whole "we gotta be kind, especially when we don't know what's going on" speech, like that speech kind of hit me like a ton of rocks, like a ton of bricks. Like in the theater, I think I was already kind of crying through that movie, but that moment kind of this grabbed me in the soul, and I was like, oh yeah, man, I feel you, I feel that, And that's another that's a character certainly that I would throw on like the identifiable board,
Absolutely.
You want to be cool alpha Waymond, but you're probably just regular timeline Waymond.
Whenever people say to me about like all you care about is money, Greg, it's if I have to bring up like a YouTube, no one ever likes to hear about the YouTube business side of things. Like the audience generally doesn't like hearing about that because then it just gets interpreted. Everything is very tribalism thinking. I've just sort of come to believe now. It's like
it's easy to have the high mind,
and no matter what,
and it's got to be this versus that.
And
we can't just
no, it's just a variable of a bigger thing. And Everything Everywhere All at Once was the channel trailer for a long time because that was the video that I undoubtedly had the most emotional experience ever. I've cried in several movie reactions, but that was one where I was like uncontrollably sobbing to the point where I was like kind of embarrassed. I was like.
Because it feels like it's so bouncy and fun, but it feels like it's also like unlocking a piece of your soul or something.
But I brought the money thing because I'm like, that video wasn't monetized. It got hit with a yellow dollar bill sign, I believe, because of that one butt plug thing.
Sure.
And I tried
Shouts out
it,
to Andy or Brian, whichever.
And then it got blocked in certain countries. I've fought the appeals for block just to get it visible because I love that movie and I just wanted to share that experience. It was a channel trailer for a long time. And even though you put that there, you want your channel trailer to be something that can generate revenue. And I was like, no, I just love this movie. I want to share it with people.
Yeah.
So it's not even about
that's
the money on this one.
But that's beautifully sort of in the spirit, I feel like, with that movie. That one, yeah, left a huge bunch of impressions.
That was the best movie, man.
That scene for sure is one. And also, I remember very much being hit by, once you see Fruitvale Station, you'll understand. But I remember like really taking a break to sob like after that movie for whatever reason.
Damn, you're the second person to bring it up now. I really feel like I gotta watch it before it gets spoiled for me.
Yeah. And it's not the kind of movie you think it is, which makes the heartbreak that much more. And then I can't think of an individual scene from it, but I do remember The Way Back was a movie that I remember being in a very sort of emotionally fragile place going to. And then I watched it like 2 or 3 times in the theater that day and was just sort of like really hit hard by the whole thing. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I felt the need to shout that movie out.
Perfect. Love to hear it. Let's end on a really positive note, John.
Let's go.
Can you recall a movie that made you want to revisit your childhood or reconnect with your roots?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. That's a good question. Hey, that's a great question, Coy Gendro. Everything Everywhere has that thing where it makes you just want to like go check in with all of life and sort of be in a truly vulnerable emotional being, and it has a strong message of like family bonds and stuff like that. So I mean, I guess that's the first thing that would spring to mind. You mean that would like take me back to the flavor of you mean something that's encapsulated in the experience of a movie? Like this movie is kind of about these emotions that would bring you back home to something from, you know, the past or to youth, or more is it like an experiential thing? Like, oh, we watched this a bunch growing up, so like I would want to go back and be transported that way. Is it like, you know?
I would say the former.
Yeah.
And the latter's good.
I mean, yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Space Jam.
The next generation. What was the Space Jam 2 called? I don't know. Yeah, I feel like there's probably something else, but that movie I remember very much got me thinking in that kind of direction about just like life and how to be and how to live and how to interact with the people during the time that you have, you know, and I mean, it's either that or like a movie about making movies or something like that. Like, and you know, like an Ed Wood would also kind of serve some parts of that because again, like growing up, certainly I grew up with like a lot of monster movies and old black and white stuff and, you know, the Marx Brothers or whatever else. So like, yeah, that sort of misfittiness takes me back to youth, and that also found family sort of, you know, consortium thing brings me back to something I remember being very comforting as a kid, and then also the aesthetics I like as a kid. Like those movies come to mind anyway.
Okay. All right, then I got a really
feel like
fun one.
I could find the definitive answer. This is what I'm talking about. Like right after we cut, I'll find the definitive answer.
Ted, we're almost done. How about this? What's the love story that you've connected with the most?
Oh my goodness. I know this one. That's the Before trilogy.
Walk to Remember. Oh, no.
Walk to Remember, baby. Hey, I like that movie. It was a good movie. I very much enjoyed sharing that with you. No, the Before trilogy, I think. That was a movie that was before Sunset and Sunrise were shared with me from friend who I think it was during a time in life where I was also just doing some coming of age again and probably had some heartbreaks and some relationships. And yeah, like that movie is so lovely. And like as a piece of art, you know, it inspired me that way because it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, like, you know, 2 people talking and just walking around can be so much life and so beautiful and make you feel so many things. But yeah, the romance and both the, romanticism of that within the movie, and also the kind of just the naturalism, I guess. It's the balance of that, because like the movies themselves don't shy away from, you know, the bittersweet circumstances of life in a relationship of any kind. You know, these 2 people meet on a train and they're from 2 different parts of the world. You know, how is this going to persist? And yeah, it has all of that sort of rush and, you know, when you're really caught in a moment with somebody and it feels like this is what life is for, this is all that matters. Like, you know, like that kind of heart swell and that rush of butterflies and everything. Like the movie has that for sure. And then to watch as those characters shift and change in kind of real time with life was also just super. It's that place where yeah, it's just a movie and it's just art, but also you know that like life was lived to make the art, and it's like really obvious that's kind of the intermingling of the two. And yeah, like as a love story in general, I think it's great, and also as like a piece of art created with love for craft, I think it's pretty unbeatable.
Awesome. That's a beautiful answer.
Love
Hear
those
that, ladies?
movies. Love those movies. Yes, yes, yes.
I haven't seen them. Only Richard Linklater movie I think I've seen is Hitman. I haven't seen
Hitman. You should. Hey, I don't know what how many successful reactions there are, but those movies are great, and they will make you feel all different things.
Hey.
At least the first two, I feel like,
are coming up soon. Could prep videos, baby.
Yeah.
Well,
and the third one's good too, but you know what I mean.
I believe you, Ted. How was it, Ted?
It's great.
You're lying to me, Ted.
No.
Ted.
Oh, I thought of my female character I relate to.
Yes,
Ted thought of the female character he relates to. Who is it?
Bulma from Dragon Ball.
Who?
Bulma from Dragon Ball. Let's go.
Oh my God, you relate. Why do you relate to her? I will repeat everything you say really succinctly.
I was just gonna say her curiosity for things, like trying to explore. I mean, she's also very nervous,
nervous.
And when she's doing it, she's having a great time.
Sure,
having a great time.
Someone who doesn't realize how capable they are, but who has that endless courage to push them into interesting situations.
Nice.
Or endless curiosity to push them into.
That's not even one of the questions on my little sheet here. That's a little Greg winged question.
Hey, that's a good one.
But then someone's going to come at me and be like, I don't look at people in terms of sex. And I'm like, well, shit. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean,
that's fair. I get you. But you know what question I'm asking.
Truly speaking, I mean, yes, any performance just should be able to move you if it's good enough, no matter who's performing it.
I respect it. But you also know what I'm asking.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, John. I had fun. This was fun.
This was a blast.
I hope people learned something about
the last
you.
Dab, yeah.
I heard people learn something about you.
Yeah,
the
I
last
hope this
dab.
is interesting at all in any capacity. I don't
think
know.
so. I think for people who've wanted to get to know John, this will be our most female demographic viewed podcast we've done.
Good, excellent.
Can't wait to see the comments.
Yeah, I'll come back for part 2. The good thing about this is watching each of these from Ted's perspective. I don't know if how this one's going, but each one of these has left me going like, man, I want to hear more of this conversation with whoever it might be.
It's the challenge. I'm learning as I'm doing this. And I'm very much just like, I'm willing to fail. Let's fuck up while I'm doing this. And as we're talking, whenever I'm conversing, I'm learning something as we're conversing. It's like, okay, well, I had to ask myself, like, why do I ask this celebrity question about celebrity crush? Like, why do I ask this? And then I don't really lean into it. And I was like, but then I had to ask myself on my own time, like, why do I ask this? So then I really, from listening to that, applied some of that to Christian, made him a little uncomfortable. And I was like, no, okay, let me get better at it. Sure. And then as we're talking, I do have that thought of like, oh shit, my mind's going in like, this could go in a billion different directions.
Yeah.
And then the other part is I actually know so much about you.
Sure.
That I have to focus it and streamline what I want to talk about. And I'm improvising that as I'm talking with you. So I'm just letting the audience know my little process that I'm going through.
No, totally.
I'm trying to I got to get better at hosting these.
I got to be in conversation, but also guiding and shaping the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a skill that I know other people have that I'm just like, I'm learning how to properly do that when I'm like, I want these to be like an hour long, hour to hour and a half.
You have a good sense for time and structure.
Yeah. I start to feel it out. I'm always in a rush.
Yeah.
Time was
that's good. As much as I'm sure that doesn't always help you be calm, that does probably help as an instinct to keep things tight.
I have anxiety, so my thing is like I'm really calm in the discussion, and then there's some point where I'm like, "Are we behind?"
Yeah,
Ted, how long are we on the broadcast for?
Do we need to cut again?
That's what happens.
What are we doing?
It's like I'm really.
Do we lose all the angles?
Even like creep up on me. It's not like I wonder if we've been going on a little overtime. It's just, but that's the way I operate. But and then also this. I want to ask questions about movies, but then I'm also realizing but sometimes I might not know someone as well. So I might need to ask them a little bit about their personal life first and then find them, or maybe it has to be inverted.
See. Yeah. I think it'll be a little bit of both. You'll see what asking about what threads of someone's personal life will lead you to a question you had already versus, when is a question a good jumping off point?
Yeah. Cause I really do believe in this. I really like it. And it's really fun to me. And I had fun doing this with
Next
you, man.
episode, I'll interview you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just give you this question. Be like, ask me.
Yeah.
Ask me this question.
Can I bring up one more experience?
Sure, Johnny.
Because
Whatever
we
you
didn't.
want,
It was
man.
one thing because you asked about the scariest movie experiences.
We
But
didn't
one
talk, for teasers. We didn't talk about the Fight Club thing that you
didn't talk about the Fight
teased.
Club thing. That's true. Well, I was very obsessed with Fight Club as a child, whatever how old.
What's the other experience you want to bring up?
It wasn't in a movie theater, but one of the scariest movie experiences I remember, like bar none, was that sleepover you and I had, where you brought over The Ring.
Oh yeah,
and you insisted we watch this on my VHS little TV upstairs. In the dark, you were like, "No, we got to turn on the light." You know, if from a young age you have known what the premium movie watching experience ought to be, and so you're like, "We're turning up the sound, we're turning out all the lights." And I remember that prologue beat where she opens up the closet door or whatever, and that girl's inside with the twisted up green looking face, like that freaked me out. Like it left a huge impression on me, and I was like scared every inch of. Ironically, the coming out of the TV didn't actually bother me that much, but like the rest of the experience of watching the movie, I was just like fraught.
I remember your reaction when it happened. You didn't even like freak out like you would now.
Yeah.
You know, like people might imagine, John, oh, you just, I'll never forget it. You just went, no.
I aged like 20 years that day. I became an old soul in that moment. I was like, no. And then I was on a shoot years later. We were at we were on a Fangoria Blood and Guts shoot at Rick Baker's studio, and I came into this one showroom he had, and there was this like what looked like a kind of open door, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's behind here. And I looked in there, and it's the girl on the floor. He had like, because I guess he must have done the effects.
Oh, cool.
I think so. Yeah, because he had like the
cool.
dummy there, and it was in like literally just this dark corner that you would have to get curious and look in to find it, and it made me jump in that moment. For at least my heart leapt, and yeah, so like that's just been a cine memory throughout my life, and because like we would have some epic. You know, like let's have a sleepover and watch a movie. I feel like that's how I first saw Goodfellas. Like
probably, Scarface, maybe
Scarface.
Yeah, good times. I mean, it's definitely we have stories for years.
Yeah,
so it's like I gotta
whenever you need a filler episode, you'll have me in.
I'm gonna need that.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I'll
God,
save
the real last thing. My God, this has gone so over. Is
this is a True John
because
episode.
I did say I would say this is the longest yard thing. This is real conversation.
Yeah,
I asked. I think we had a camera for it. That's when I asked this question. I was like, John, have you seen The Longest Yard? And you went, which one? The one with Burt Reynolds or Adam Sandler? And I said, the one with Adam Sandler. And I said, you said no. I'm like, oh, so you've seen the one with Burt Reynolds? No.
Yeah.
So I was like, why did you just say no to begin with? Like,
yeah.
Like,
and in hindsight, I'm like, oh, that would be the more efficient
Why
answer.
are you so technical about it?
My brain goes, there are two. Which one? And that's that is like the first place my brain would go, and then
But just imagine that with like everything.
no, and it is in some ways it's funny to me, and in other ways I'm like, this is distressing though, because it would probably be way more efficient to just be like neither, no. Yeah. But yeah, that is a good example of how my brain operates on some occasions.
All right, guys, we'll leave your thoughts down below.
Yes.
What'd you think about John? Shouts out to Ted. Ted in the house.
Ted. Pulling up the graphic.
Shouts out to Preserve. Thanks to Praper for inserting nothing but accurate inserts. I forgot which camera's mine. I've just been looking all over the place.
That one's yours.
And thank you to Multihouse, of course, and leave in the comments. Is there a particular person you'd like me to try to get to be on this channel for this podcast? I've got a few people in mind that I would love to have.
Mr. Sunday Movies.
If I could get Mr. Sunday Movies, that's like my dream for the YouTube department.
Gotta get him in and Mason.
But if I could get him and Mason, I'd be like, John, you're co-hosting this one movie.
Oh, that would be on par with the double toasted schmodown. Like I would transcend into YouTube Valhalla.
Yeah, that one I would make sure, especially because you introduced me to them. I'd be like, I gotta have a little co-host for this one.
Yeah, I would just be running the soundboard and fangirling in the corner.
I feel like it's possible, but they live in Australia.
Jeremy Johns.
Jeremy Johns would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
You've met him before.
You know, all the names. Chris Stuckman, Jeremy Johns.
We should end.
No.
It's late. Thank you guys so much.
Let's
for
head go home.
Thanks, Ted, for
Thank you
They asked us
guys.
to move our cars like an hour ago.
They did. To be fair.
See you guys. Thank you.
No, we got more.
Oh, let's do some thumbnail poses. We should just look like we're having like, we'll say the real John Humphrey. That'd be funny. Just like that. Like, who are you? Why? All right. I'm sick of scrubbing the faces on these podcasts. Hey, John, we need space, so we're putting Landon Miller here on your podcast.
Hey, I was hoping for an additional guest to take the spotlight.
That's what I was thinking.
I think Landon really opened up today. We learned a ton.
What did you learn about Landon?
Landon.
Name 5 very interesting facts that sound very, very personal about him.
Landon Miller, his ancestors actually worked in a mill, and that was like their trade, which is why his name passed down was Miller. Because when they got here on Ellis Island, they were like, we don't know how to spell whatever name was originally your name, but you guys are Millers.
I'm holding up
so
two.
now you're the Millers. Number 2, Landon loves to read Da Vinci Code books because of Robert Langdon, which just sounds similar, and that's enough to please Landon because Landon is a person of refined but specific taste.
I'm on number 3 now.
That is number 3, refined but specific taste.
All right, then what's number 4?
Number 4 is that Landon Miller has 2 right feet, so he's like way better at dancing than the average person.
Freak.
Yeah, it's freaky guy. And 5 is that Landon Miller, he doesn't wear socks ever.
Freak.
Those
2 right feet?
Always for those 2 right feet. He's
Disgusting.
like always got to have them out.
Absolutely
He's always got to
disgusting.
have them in open-toed shoes.
Guys always walking in
No
a circle.
closed-toed shoes for Landon Miller. He's always turning right. You're the anti-Zoolander.
Anyway, Landon.
I'm glad this was at the end of the podcast.
I think it represents us the best.
Happy Halloween.